The galactic hall reverberated with mournful sighs. It was no longer a battlefield ablaze, but a graveyard of hope. Within the vast expanse of the Coalition Council, the esteemed representatives of once proud species bowed their heads in shameful silence. The colossal holographic display at the chamber's center projected grim figures, fleets annihilated, star systems extinguished, and the relentless advance of the cross swarm, biomechanical monstrosities ceaselessly grinding everything in their path. High Chancellor Xyler of Kryn, his luminous blue skin emitting a faint glow, rose. His trembling voice shattered the stifling silence. Defenses shattered. The Kraw fleets breached the Omega Line. If Kryn Prime falls, the heart of the Coalition will cease to beat within days. We are out of time. Whispers of despair rippled through the hall. The Kraw swarm, soulless biomechanical engines of destruction, driven by a hive mind, had proven their invincibility. They devoured everything, from resources to populations, to fuel their endless war machine. Ambassador Forlag of Zidonian, his 8 limbs coiled tightly in fury, spat venomous words. This war was doomed from the moment we underestimated their swarm. Strategies failed, armies shattered. What more can we possibly do? A shadow stirred at the edge of the chamber. All eyes turned towards the figure emerging. Resolute footsteps echoed on the polished obsidian floor. War Commander Arcturus Thorn, a human forged in the crucible of war, stood tall, defiant amidst the encompassing despair. Broad-shouldered in his black tactical armor, his piercing gray eyes, sharp as daggers, cut through the gloomy haze. Your strategies failed, Thorn stated, his voice deep and unwavering. Because you fought as if the enemy adheres to rules. The Kraw do not negotiate, do not retreat, and care nothing for your principles. They only understand absolute power and utter annihilation. If you wish to prevail, you must fight as they do, ruthless and without mercy. The hall erupted in protest. Furious shouts echoed, accusing Thorn of barbarism and recklessness. High Chancellor Xyler raised a hand, gesturing for silence, his luminous eyes narrowing, scrutinizing the human commander. Commander Thorn, Xyler spoke slowly. Humanity has contributed but a meager fraction to this war since its inception. Your species is known for its ferocity, yes, but this conflict demands strategy, not blind brute force. Why should we heed your words? Thorn approached the holographic display, the light casting sharp angles on his face. He manipulated the interface, displaying a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Fiery red tendrils, the symbol of the cross swarm, spread like a virus, engulfing Coalition territory. Because you are losing, Thorn said bluntly, and if you stubbornly cling to your outdated tactics, you will all be extinct within weeks. He zoomed in on Solara Prime, highlighting its strategic importance. This is your last chance. Solara is more than just a planet. It is the only gateway to your core worlds. Lose it, and the Kraw will crush every defense system. You need a counteroffensive, not retreat. And what exactly do you propose? Ambassador Forlag asked, skepticism lacing his voice, mandibles clicking. Thorn's expression hardened. Let humanity lead. The hall fell silent. The idea was beyond comprehension. For decades, humans were merely regarded as unpredictable newcomers on the galactic stage, too impulsive and crude to hold positions of real power. Entrusting the Coalition's survival to them was a gamble most representatives were unwilling to take. You demand we relinquish command to a species renowned for its savagery? Governor Lyra of Etherian scoffed, her golden plumage bristling. Thorn turned to her, his voice like cold steel. I am not demanding, I am offering a choice. Step aside and let us do what you cannot, or witness your people consumed by the swarm. High Chancellor Xyler studied Thorn, his luminous eyes betraying a flicker of hope and desperate resolve. What guarantee do we have that your methods will work? Thorn's jaw clenched. For a moment, The weight of his words seemed to press heavily upon his shoulders. "None," he admitted, "but I guarantee one thing. We will not fall in silence. Humanity never loses a war. We adapt, we endure, and we strike harder than anyone expects. Grant me command, and I will grant you a fighting chance." The hall erupted into debate once more, this time a mixture of anger and hesitant agreement. The argument raged, but time was running out, and the Craw were closing in. Finally, Xyler raised his voice, silencing the clamor. "Enough," he declared resolutely. "Desperate times call for desperate measures. Commander Thorn, humanity will assume command. But know this, if you fail, the blood of the galaxy will be upon your hands." Thorn nodded, his expression unreadable. "Understood." As the meeting adjourned, Thorn strode out of the hall, his mind already calculating the next move. The war was far from over, but for the first time in months, he felt the tide begin to turn. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, and Thorn thought grimly that was about to change. The Coalition's sprawling war room was a chaotic fusion of cultures. Holographic displays flickered, showcasing fleets, planetary systems, and enemy formations. Alien officers conferred in hushed tones, their myriad forms reflecting the galaxy's diversity. At the center of it all, Commander Arcturus Thorn stood tall, his presence commanding attention like a gravitational force. "Your fleets are scattered and disorganized," Thorn stated, pointing to the hologram of the Solaris system. "Defensive lines are patchwork, and you waste precious resources protecting planets already lost. That ends now." His tone brooked no argument. The assembled Coalition officers exchanged uneasy glances, their discomfort palpable. Beside Thorn, Major Rex Colossus stood like a mountain, his towering frame and steely gaze adding weight to every word the commander spoke. While Thorn exuded cold, calculating authority, Colossus embodied raw, unyielding strength. "We are consolidating your forces," Thorn continued, his gray eyes scanning the room. "Effective immediately, all ships, troops, and supplies fall under human command. Any objections?" Ambassador Forlag's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Objections? Commander Thorn, you demand we entrust our armies to a species yet to prove itself on this scale. Your arrogance is—" Thorn cut him off, his voice sharp as a blade. "Arrogance is wasting time debating when the enemy is at your doorstep. I am not here to earn your trust. I am here to win this war." Silence descended, broken only by the hum of the holograms. Finally, High Chancellor Xyler nodded reluctantly. "Proceed, Commander Thorn." Thorn wasted no time. Under his direction, Coalition forces were reshaped with ruthless efficiency. Alien officers grumbled about human uncompromising methods, but they could not deny the results. Major Colossus oversaw the transformation, implementing grueling drills and combat simulations designed to break old habits and forge a unified fighting force. Colossus's voice echoed across the training grounds as he addressed a mixed group of soldiers, towering Kryn, wiry Etherian, and tenacious Zidonians. "You think the Craw care about your traditions or your pride? No. They will tear you apart unless you fight like your life depends on it. Because it does." The soldiers hesitated, unaccustomed to such bluntness. Colossus's piercing gaze swept over them. "Form up. Move it, like you mean it." Training was brutally harsh. Soldiers collapsed under the weight of human-designed exosuits, their bodies unaccustomed to the strain. Simulated battles tested their resolve, with human instructors offering no reprieve for any mistake. Gradually, grudgingly, the alien recruits adapted. Initial resentment gave way to grudging respect. Thorn's strategies were no less unforgiving. The Coalition's first operation under human command was a high-risk strike on a cross-supply depot deep within enemy territory. Alien leaders protested, deeming it a suicide mission. But Thorn was resolute. "We hit them where it hurts," Thorn said, gesturing to the hologram. This depot feeds their fleets. Destroy it, and we slow their advance on Solara. The assault was lightning fast and devastating. Using cloaked ships and precision strikes, coalition forces overwhelmed the depot's defenses. Human and alien troops fought side by side, their combined efforts delivering a crushing blow to the cross supply lines. Victory came at a heavy cost. Casualties were high, and the depot's destruction left a smoldering scar on the planet's surface. As the troops regrouped, an alien officer approached Thorn, his expression a mixture of awe and accusation. "You call this a victory?" the officer said, gesturing to the fallen. "Dozens of lives lost, entire cities leveled." Thorn met his gaze unflinchingly. "Victory is measured by what you gain, not what you lose. Those lives bought us time and leverage." The Craw felt pain. "That is how we win it back." Back at Coalition headquarters, tensions boiled over. Council members accused Thorn of barbarism, their voices rising in heated debate. "You humans fight like savages." Minister Theus exclaimed, her golden plumage quivering. "You sacrifice lives as if they mean nothing." Thorn leaned forward, his gaze cold. "Do you think this war can be won with diplomacy, with hesitation? The Craw are not monsters because they are strong. They are monsters because they exploit your weakness. We will defeat them because we are willing to do what you are not." Major Colossus, standing beside his commander, added, "You do not win a war by playing nice. You win by making the enemy afraid to face you." The council fell silent. The weight of the human words settled heavily upon them. Despite the mounting resistance to Thorn's methods, the results were undeniable. The coalition began to see progress for the first time in months. Craw fleets hesitated where they had once advanced relentlessly, forced to reconsider their tactics in the face of the coalition's newfound ruthlessness. In quiet moments between battles, Thorn stood alone, staring at the stars beyond the command ship's viewport. He did not flinch from the sacrifices he had made, but the burden of them weighed heavily on his soul. Colossus approached, his tone softer than usual. "Do you think they will ever understand Dar?" Thorn did not look away from the stars. "They do not need to understand. They just need to survive." As the command ship hummed with preparations for the next operation, Thorn steeled himself. The war was far from over, but the tide was turning. Humanity's ruthless approach had proven one thing: survival demanded ruthlessness. The bridge of the coalition flagship, Vanguard's Wrath, was alive with activity. Holographic displays cast a dim blue glow over the gathered officers, their faces set with grim determination. At the center of the chaos, Commander Arcturus Thorn stood, his gaze locked on the star map projected before him. Every detail, every vector, was a step in his unfolding plan, a plan that, if successful, would strike at the heart of the Craw fleets. "Status report," Thorn commanded, his voice cutting through the hum of machinery and chatter. Major Rex Colossus stepped forward, his imposing figure casting a shadow over the consoles. "Fleet mobilization is at 80%, sir. Our forces are holding the Epsilon corridor, but reports indicate heavy resistance. The Craw are reinforcing faster than anticipated." Thorn nodded, his mind racing. The Epsilon corridor was the coalition's only pathway to the Kalan Rift, a strategic position critical to crippling the Craw's supply chain. Losing it was not an option. "Push them harder," Thorn said, his tone unwavering. "Deploy the Carnage-class frigates as a spearhead. We break their line now, or not at all." The plan was audacious, bordering on reckless, but it embodied everything Thorn believed in: calculated aggression and relentless pressure. The Craw had never encountered an enemy willing to risk so much, and Thorn intended to use that to his advantage. The next hours were a blur of battle reports and shifting strategies. Coalition forces engaged the Craw in a brutal conflict, their fleets maneuvering through the narrow corridor with surgical precision. Thorn's commands were precise, his tactics ruthless. When the Craw tried to flank coalition ships, Thorn ordered a feint, luring the enemy into a trap. The resulting ambush obliterated 2 hive carriers, leaving the Craw forces in disarray. Despite the victory, the cost was staggering. The bridge fell silent as casualty reports came in. Thorn's expression remained stoic, but the tension in his jaw betrayed the weight of his decisions. Lieutenant Elias Carter spoke hesitantly, his youthful face pale. Sector 4 reports over 60% losses. They are requesting reinforcements. Thorn's gaze shifted to the young officer, his voice measured. There are no reinforcements. But, sir, Carter began, his voice tinged with disbelief, they will hold the line. Thorn repeated, his tone brooking no argument. Their sacrifice ensures our success. We honor them by finishing the mission. The young lieutenant fell silent, his idealism visibly shaken. Colossus stepped beside him, a hand on his shoulder. This isn't about heroics, kid. It's about survival. Thorn is making the hard calls so the rest of us have a chance to fight another day. The turning point came when the coalition fleet reached the Kalen Rift. The gravitational anomalies in the region made it treacherous, but Thorn had planned for every contingency. Deploying advanced human-designed drone swarms, he disrupted the Craw hive coordination, sowing chaos among their forces. The battle reached its crescendo as the coalition flagship fired its main cannon, a weapon of human ingenuity capable of piercing even Craw bioarmor. The blast tore through the enemy's command carrier, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The Craw forces faltered, their cohesion crumbling without centralized command. Cheers erupted across the coalition fleet as the enemy retreated, leaving behind the debris of their once imposing armada. The Kalen Rift was secured, and with it, a decisive victory. Yet, on the bridge of the Vanguard's wrath, the celebration was muted. Thorn stood silently, his eyes fixed on the display of the battlefield. We did it, Colossus said, his voice carrying a rare note of triumph. For now, Thorn replied, his tone grim. The Craw do not give up. This is just the beginning. In the aftermath, tensions among the coalition leadership reached a boiling point. While the victory had proven humanity's effectiveness, it also highlighted their unrelenting brutality. During the debriefing, Ambassador Forlag confronted Thorn. Your methods are effective, Commander, but at what cost? Entire sectors left undefended, thousands of lives lost. How do you justify this? Thorn's gaze was icy. I do not need to justify survival. This war is not about your comfort or pride. It is about ensuring there is something left of this galaxy when it is over. Forlag's mandibles clicked in frustration, but he said nothing further. The silence was broken by High Chancellor Xyler, who addressed the room with measured authority. Commander Thorn's methods may be harsh, Xyler said, but we cannot deny their results. The Kalen Rift is ours. We have gained the first true victory in this war, and for that, we owe humanity our gratitude. As the council adjourned, Thorn lingered in the war room, his thoughts heavy. Colossus approached, his usual confidence tempered by concern. You are pushing them hard, Dar, he said. Even the humans are starting to feel it. Thorn did not look up from the holographic display. They will feel it a lot more if we lose. Colossus nodded, his respect for his commander unshaken. Just make sure you do not burn yourself out in the process. Thorn allowed himself a rare, fleeting smile. Not until the swarm is ashes. The tide of war had turned, but the weight of every decision bore heavily on Thorn's shoulders. With the coalition's trust hanging by a thread, he knew the battles ahead would demand even greater sacrifices. The question was whether the galaxy, and Thorn himself, could endure them. The Coalition War Council gathered in the shadow of despair. Holographic projections of the galaxy displayed fiery red swaths of Craw-controlled territories encroaching on the Coalition's last bastions. At the center of the room, Commander Arcturus Thorn stood unmoving, his face carved from stone. We are out of time, High Chancellor Xyler announced, his voice heavy with resignation. The Kraw fleet moves to encircle Epsilon Prime. If it falls, our resistance will collapse. Murmurs of defeat spread through the room. The alien leaders visibly wilting under the weight of inevitable annihilation. Thorn let the silence linger before he stepped forward, his voice sharp and commanding. "No," he said. "They have made a mistake. They are concentrating everything on Epsilon Prime, thinking we will crumble. We do not crumble. We break them." Ambassador Forlag's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Your confidence is misplaced, Commander. We have thrown everything at the Kraw and gained inches at best. What can you possibly propose that we have not already tried?" Thorn activated a holographic map, the image shifting to the Kraw fleet's formation. "Humanity has a weapon we have not yet used. Our fury." The council erupted in protests and skepticism, but Thorn raised his voice above the clamor. "We are not playing defense anymore. This time, we hit them head-on with everything we have got. No retreat, no hesitation. We burn their fleets, their worlds, their very will to fight. They will learn what it means to face humanity." The room fell silent. Major Rex Colossus, ever Thorn's steadfast supporter, stepped forward. "The commander is right. The Kraw fight like a swarm, relentless, overwhelming. But they have never faced an enemy willing to match their brutality until now." Though apprehensive, the council reluctantly agreed. Thorn's plan was unprecedented, a direct assault on the Kraw's primary hive world, Nexus Prime. It was a desperate gamble, but one that promised to turn the war's tide permanently. The fleet mobilized with grim determination. On board the Vanguard's Wrath, Thorn addressed the coalition forces. His voice carried through every ship, reaching every soldier, pilot, and crew member. "This is it," Thorn began, "the battle that decides everything. The Kraw think they are unstoppable, that their numbers and savagery make them invincible. But they have never faced us, united, unyielding. Today, we show them what it means to fight for survival. Today, we remind them why humanity never backs down." The response was a thunderous roar reverberating through the fleet. The assault on Nexus Prime was chaos incarnate. The Kraw swarmed the coalition fleet with overwhelming numbers, their bioships clashing against human-designed dreadnoughts and alien cruisers. Explosions lit up the void as the battle unfolded in brutal intensity. Thorn coordinated the assault with pinpoint precision, his commands weaving coalition forces into a single cohesive weapon. Major Colossus led the ground assault, his squad plunging into the thick of the hive world's defenses. "Move, move," Colossus barked, his voice cutting through the cacophony of battle. His soldiers, a mix of human and alien troops, followed without hesitation, their trust in him absolute. They carved a path through the Kraw hordes, their unity and determination unmatched. Above, the fleet executed Thorn's most daring maneuver, the deployment of the Aegis Protocol. Human engineers had designed the experimental weapon as a last resort. It unleashed a massive localized EMP burst, disabling Kraw bioships and turning the tide of battle. As the Kraw defenses faltered, Thorn pressed the advantage. "All units, focus fire on their command clusters. Cut off their hive mind coordination." Coalition forces struck with relentless ferocity. Nexus Prime, once a symbol of Kraw dominance, became a battlefield of devastation. Human ingenuity and alien resilience combined to deliver a blow the Kraw had not anticipated. Despite the overwhelming odds, Thorn's strategy bore fruit. The Kraw fleets began to retreat, their forces in disarray. But victory came at a terrible cost. Coalition losses were staggering, their fleets and armies pushed to the brink. On the surface of Nexus Prime, Colossus and his squad fought their way to the planet's core, where the Kraw hive mind nexus pulsed with sinister energy. "This is it," Colossus shouted, planting the final charges on the structure. "Fall back." The detonation obliterated Nexus Prime in a blinding explosion, severing the Krah hive-mind connection and throwing their forces into chaos. As coalition forces regrouped, the once dominant swarm became a shadow of its former self. Back aboard the Vanguard's Wrath, Thorn stood amidst the aftermath of the battle. The war was not yet over, but for the first time, the Krah had been dealt a decisive blow. The coalition, forged in the crucible of humanity's ruthless determination, stood stronger than ever. Major Colossus approached, his armor scorched and battered. "We did it, Darius." Thorn nodded, his gaze fixed on the ruins of Nexus Prime displayed on the screen. "We showed them what we are capable of. But this is not the end. The Krah will regroup. They always do." Colossus smirked, his confidence unshaken. "Then we will be ready. Whatever it takes." Thorn allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. Humanity's fury had turned the tide, and the coalition was no longer a fractured alliance, but a force to be reckoned with. As the fleet prepared for the next phase of the war, one truth remained clear: survival demanded not just unity, but unrelenting resolve. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. They would not make that mistake again.